This is Basically Atheist, the podcast that encourages skepticism and critical thinking in day-to-day life. Well, it's been a minute since I recorded my last episode 2. Right after that, I came down with a terrible cold, included a really bad cough that caused me to be hoarse for several weeks. And I didn't think you guys wanted to listen to me croak out an episode. So I waited until I got better, and I finally am. So now here is your long-awaited episode 3. And the topic for today is Gullibility. Why are people so damn gullible? And I am an authority on gullible. I was voted most gullible in high school. True story. Really, you know that old joke where someone says, gullible's not in the dictionary. Well, when I was in high school, I actually fell for that once, and I was considering going and picking up a dictionary to look it up, and I said so when they finally told me that it was just a joke. That's how gullible I was. So I think I am certainly a good person to discuss this very important issue of people being too damn gullible. Now, so far, I have started an episode with an anecdote, and I think both of my previous episodes, it started with a story about my mom. Now, I'm not meaning to beat up on my mother, but she is such a fabulous source of material. So for Thanksgiving, we decided to drive down to my mother's house, and we spent the night at my mother's house so that we could be there for Thanksgiving. And it was mostly a good time, okay? But we were sitting on the couch talking, and she started telling my husband about this neat trick she heard about. She said her doctor's nurse told her about it. And the trick is, you put a bar of soap in your bed sheets, and it takes away any pain that you have overnight. I was about to roll my eyes out of my head the second it was out of her mouth. She continued. The nurse said, I wouldn't have believed it myself but then I tried it and it worked. I couldn't contain myself a moment longer, and exasperated, I said, Mom, that is a bunch of nonsense. My mother, immediately angry at me, as she usually is anytime I point out something that she has taken as true as the fucking bullshit that it is, exclaimed, She is a licensed nurse, Ashley, as though that alone would settle it. And I said, I don't care what she is, that sounds like a bunch of nonsense to me. I said, there's no way putting a bar of soap in between your bed sheets at night is going to cure anything. She was a little aggravated with me, I think probably for the rest of the night. And I was a little aggravated for myself. What was the point of that? I mean, I have this need, this drive to root out misinformation whenever it rears its ugly head. Did I need to do that on Thanksgiving with my mom when I was spending the night at her house so we could spend some time together? I don't know. I feel like the answer is yes, but then I think some of that ingrained Christian guilt comes up. Anytime I get into an argument with my mom, I always feel a sense of guilt for arguing with her. And I think it's just remnants of that guilt, because I'm certainly not wrong to point out how incorrect things are. But then again, sometimes I think, is this really the hill that I want to die on? Maybe I should have instead had a little fun with her. Said, that sounds interesting. I'm going to have to try it. Then, when I got home, let's say I stuck a bar of soap in my bed sheets. And I called her the next day and said, Mom, I was having this horrible pain in my side, and I tried putting the bar of soap in the bed sheets like you said, and I was skeptical before, but it worked. It really worked. I've seen light. I know I've been questioning God for a long time, and you believe that I'm angry with God, but I gotta tell you, Mom, I think I have found God. All hail the pink Dove bar. I wonder what she would think about that. I'm pretty sure she wouldn't find it as humorous as I do. But that's just one little story about how gullible people can be. My mother's very bad about just believing any nonsense she hears from somebody else, and she just takes it on faith, you know. She doesn't think things through, okay? Now, this doesn't mean that my mother is a stupid person. Lots of people do this. You know, those of us who consider ourselves free thinkers and skeptics do this too. If we feel that a person is trustworthy, we will sometimes just believe what they tell us and not think very long on whether it's actually true or not. I think this is something all human beings do from time to time, but we have to learn to train our brains not to be this fucking gullible. It's not good. A couple more examples of gullibility that I could think of from my personal life. When I was pregnant with my daughter, who is now 6, a coworker of mine at the time offered to figure out the gender of my baby by placing a ring on a string and seeing which way it swung. Now, I'm sure lots of you have heard of this before. Apparently, some people say, oh, it has to be an engagement ring, it has to be your wedding ring. She said it doesn't really matter what ring you use. You could use anybody's ring, it doesn't matter. But if it swings one way, it's a boy. If it swings another way, it's a girl. Or maybe it was, whether it was clockwise or counterclockwise. I'm really fuzzy on the details, because all I knew was as soon as it started coming out of her mouth, I'm not fucking doing that stupid shit. And yes, I know it's probably mostly harmless, but I don't want to lend credence to this kind of nonsense. It's not real. It's not a good thing to believe in this crap. And she was the kind of person, she really believes in this kind of stuff. She believes it's real. Fancies herself a witch or something like that. And she went on to say that she does this for all of her friends' babies. And I just thanked her for offering, but, it's not necessary. But it made me wonder, how many people has she done this for that just went along with it, or worse, believed it, actually believed what she said. She swore she had never been wrong. And I'll tell you something else that was kind of silly. That, now again, this is about my mom. When I was pregnant with my daughter, she accompanied me to many of my doctor's appointments. And one time, she asked my doctor, is there anything to telling when a baby is going to be born based on the moon? Because my daddy, he predicted the due date of every single one of his grandbabies, and he went by the moon, and he was never wrong. I wanted to physically facepalm so hard when that came out of her mouth. I was mortified that she was asking this doctor, an educated man, such a stupid fucking question. I still cringe when I think about it. I'll tell you, one of the best ways to find out how gullible people are and how they'll just believe all kinds of crap with no evidence whatsoever is to get pregnant. And you don't even have to go looking for them. They'll come to you and they'll tell you all their nonsense ways. Oh, if you're carrying high, you're a boy, and if you're carrying low, it's a girl, and all kinds of ways to tell when your baby's coming and what the gender, or maybe the proper term is sex, is of your baby. And it's just silly. I had a cousin who had 3 boys, okay? And when she was pregnant with the 3rd one, I saw her mother-in-law okay, at the store. And I said, oh, how's my cousin doing with her pregnancy? She doing okay? And my cousin's mother-in-law said, oh, we're just so excited. We just know it's going to be a girl this time. And I said, oh, is that what you saw in the sonogram? And she said, well, she's not far along enough yet for the sonogram, but she's carrying low, and she's really sick with this one, and she wasn't sick with the other ones. So it's got to be a girl this time. And I just had a grin on my face, but in my mind, I was just thinking, you got to be shitting me. That's what you're going by? Lo and behold, the sonogram results confirmed it was a third boy. They were all very disappointed. If we're going to talk about silly things that people believe, in other words, people being gullible about stuff that there's no evidence to support, I had to mention this, which was ghosts or spirits and other such supernatural things. Honestly, I tend to put gods in these categories too, but we're going to specifically talk more about ghosts and spirits. So many people believe in ghosts. It's insane. And I personally have found people who are brought up believing in supernatural being that grants all your fucking wishes and cures you when you're sick and who's going to take you to heaven where there's streets paved with gold. Those people are the same kind of people who are more likely than not to believe in ghosts and or spirits. Coincidence? I think not. According to a 2012 Huffington Post poll of 1,000 Americans, 45% of respondents thought ghosts or dead spirits are totally real. That's nearly half in 2012. And I'm afraid it hasn't gotten any better. I find this truly alarming. A 2017 study by Chapman University found that 52% of Americans believe that there are places that are haunted by spirits. And, when you ask these people, you ever ask somebody who swore up and down they saw a ghost or had some kind of ghostly encounter, you ask them how they know it was a ghost. A lot of the time they'll just say, well, there's no other way to explain it. Do you know what we call that? What us skeptics call that? It's an argument from ignorance, which is a logical fallacy. It's pretty much just like God of the Gaps, except take out God, insert ghosts or spirits. We don't know how to explain it any other way. Therefore, ghosts! I'll tell you another thing that a lot of gullible people when I was a child believed, that Harry Potter is of the devil. It was like Satanic Panic 2.0. Don't let your kids read those Harry Potter books. It teaches them how to summon the devil. It teaches them how to do real dark magic spells. Those books are a portal to the underworld. I had an aunt and an uncle who really, truly believed Harry Potter was evil. He is a preacher at the Assemblies of God Church. And he and his wife were explaining to my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, who I lived with at the time, that Harry Potter is evil. I distinctly remember her saying, oh, you can't even let your kids get started on those books. It'll suck them in. And I was probably 10 or 11 at the time, and I just remember thinking, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Have they even read the books? And the answer is no, they had not read the books. The truth is, I at 10 was less gullible than full-grown adults who were just listening to other full-grown adults none of whom had even bothered to read the damn books. They were just claiming it was all evil, based off of what other dipshits said. And on a side note, my mother thinks I am horrible for judging them and laughing about it now for what they believed then. Let me just tell you something right now. If your opinion or your belief is something that is fucking stupid and ridiculous, I'm going to laugh at it like it's stupid and ridiculous. Not all opinions are equal. One that is based in logic and reason is always going to be superior to one that is based in magical thinking and fucking stupid nonsense. That is such a pet peeve of mine when somebody goes, "Oh, well, that's my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion." Sure you are, Cupcake, and the rest of us entitled to call you out on how fucking stupid it is. So, back to Harry Potter for a moment. My husband grew up attending a small local Pentecostal church in our hometown that was, like, apparently way worse than the Assembly of God one I sometimes attended. He said he remembers the church flipping out when Harry Potter started getting popular. And on the church bulletin board, they had like a pamphlet or maybe a sign, something along those lines, posted on the bulletin board warning the congregant about the dangers of Harry Potter. The paper apparently warned the churchgoers that in the children's book, the spells that the fictional characters cast in the story were designed to summon demons. And these people really believed that crock of shit. Now, I realize that oftentimes people are victims of bad ideas. You know, they're brought up from infanthood, okay, to believe in magical thinking, to believe in, you know, not just God, but demons and angels and all kinds of magical shit. But come on. Did they not stop for just a second to wonder if this is true? I mean, I guess not. I really feel like if they had, maybe they wouldn't have just outright believed it. Like my husband says that he's pretty sure the whole church did. And it just shouldn't surprise me any longer, but it still does. Sometimes my mind is just boggled by this nonsense. And I have to say that I think some of the most gullible people out there are conspiracy theorists. Oh, and I know a good conspiracy theory can be entertaining. But, you know, it's all fun and games until somebody really believes this shit, which is a lot of people. I'm sure you've run into them online. You see them posting crazy memes on their feeds about 9/11, the Kennedy assassination, chemtrails, vaccines, all kinds of wacky stuff like that. And to my knowledge, there isn't any evidence to support any of this stuff. It's just really crazy stuff that somebody out there came up with, and people just believe it like it's the damn gospel for no reason. I mean, I think at some point in the future, I'm going to have to dedicate an entire episode to some of these. Because they are just wacky, just whacked out stuff. Here are a few examples. You got the real wacko stuff, like the 9/11 truthers and the Obama birthers, and you got the anti-vaxxers, the Illuminati, crazy Hollywood conspiracies. That one's kind of fun. Like, did you know Britney Spears died and was replaced by somebody else? Yeah. Oh, and Beyonce's possessed by a demon. I swear to God, I stumbled across this accidentally. Some post a couple years back about, I think, Beyonce's new album, or something about Beyonce. And I was reading the comments on the post, and this thread was just insane. Half the people were talking about, oh, you know she's possessed by a demon. Yeah, the demon's name is Sasha Fierce. That's why on that one album she said she was Sasha Fierce. That's the name of the demon that possesses her. And I was just like, what is wrong with you people? Jesus fucking Christ. Oh God, and then you got the false flag idiots, the Alex Jones worshipers. I can't stand these fucking people. These are the ones who, after any natural tragedy, especially like a shooting, they'll swear up and down that the victims are paid actors, the shooting didn't even really happen. It's all a big conspiracy to try to overturn the Second Amendment and take everyone's guns away. Worst example of this was Sandy Hook. Children were laying dead on the floor of an elementary school. And these people are going after those kids' parents, telling them their children never even existed and that it was all a big hoax. If you are one of these false flag idiots, fuck you. Seriously, there's no hope for you at all. Go fuck yourself. Then you got the conspiracy theories that maybe are a little more sophisticated. You know, your elementary school teacher might believe these. You know, maybe a nurse that's in your life or even your doctor might buy into some of these. I am ashamed to say that at one point I, too, was anti-GMO. And yes, it is a silly conspiracy theory, not much better than the Obama birthers and the 9/11 truthers. If you are anti-GMO, you are going off of just as much evidence as a chemtrail-believing idiot is about their conspiracy theory. There isn't any evidence that GMO foods, the Frankenfoods are coming. There isn't any evidence that these foods are dangerous or bad for you or less nutritious than their fucking super expensive counterparts, organic food. If anything, the conspiracy is organic food, okay? People are always saying, oh, big food, big agri is trying to poison all of us. No, the conspiracy theory is big organic. Come on. Their whole shtick is our food is more wholesome and more nutritious and isn't going to fucking poison you like all those other foods. Yeah, it might cost 5 to 10 times as much as the other guy, but hey, look what you're getting. Even though double-blind studies and double-blind taste tests have shown that they are not any more nutritious and they also don't taste any better. Now, what do you think would happen to those big organic companies if everyone realized this? There's your conspiracy. Why are so many people so willing to believe in so much silly nonsense? I don't know. I don't know why people tend to grasp at these things. I mean, when I sort of got into the anti-GMO movement, it was like right after I left religion. I was searching for something. I wanted things to make sense. And I was kind of prone to this conspiracy type thinking because I wasn't really yet a good skeptic. I mean, I had left God behind and Christianity behind, and I wasn't interested in looking into any of the other religions because I felt they were probably much the same way Christianity was, a bunch of gobbledygook nonsense. And I think I was searching for something, and conspiracy theories type thinking made some kind of sense to me. But, you know, after a few years of being kind of anti-GMO, I finally decided if I'm going to be a good skeptic, I need to look at both sides of this. So instead of just going to the blogs, okay, where anti-GMO idiots were just posting all this anti-GMO stuff all the time, I actually looked at the other side, okay? I looked up, are there any studies that actually show, okay, that GMO foods are dangerous or that organic food is better? And there aren't any. In fact, there are thousands of studies that show GMO foods to be safe. Like, they've been looked into more than, like, lots of other shit, okay? They're good. They're safe. And there aren't even that many on the market, actually. Everything that the anti-GMO movement says can be refuted by science and logical reasoning, like pretty much every one of them. And that's when I realized I had fallen for bullshit. I had been gullible. And I did feel a little embarrassed, but more so than feeling embarrassed, I felt a sense of freedom. I can stop worrying about this now. I don't have to feel bad that we can't really afford to buy organic food all the time. I don't have to feel bad about feeding my daughter, food that doesn't have that organic label on it, which is mostly marketing bullshit anyway, okay? A GMO label or that fucking non-GMO butterfly, all a fucking marketing gimmick for people who are, say it with me, gullible. And I was so glad to wake up and come out of that crap. In the dictionary, the definition of gullible is a person who is easily persuaded to believe something. Easily persuaded to believe something, all right? It's someone who is told, hey, this is true, and they simply accept it as fact without giving it any further thought. If this is who you are gullible. Now, there are some people out there who actually try to pretend this is some kind of virtue, okay? And I'm not really sure that it is. In fact, I think most of the time it's probably not a virtue, okay? It is important to question things that people tell you. It is important to be skeptical about things that you hear. The more outlandish it is, the more skeptical you should be. You shouldn't say, oh, I'll believe that. I mean, you shouldn't be just picking and choosing what you're going to believe. You need to have a thought process here. And I think sometimes people are just choosing to believe something to be sociable. I've been getting into little arguments on Facebook lately. People will be talking about, something that's obviously a hoax, and they'll post about it as like it's scientific fact. You ask them for links, they can't provide the links, and they think you are so rude for asking. You post a Snopes article, some idiot has to go, oh, you trust Snopes? Well, that shows us what you are. Let me tell you something. I want to tell you something. Side note. Snopes is trustworthy, okay? I know a couple of people recently left Snopes and wrote a big smear article about it, but the smear article I think is dubious because it was just a big ad for the company they're starting, which is going to be competition for Snopes. So I think we should take what they have to say with a grain of salt. And even if what those two said about Snopes, okay, that Snopes, picks and chooses what they are going to discuss, okay? Even if that is true, that doesn't mean that the Snopes articles themselves are not true, okay? Snopes has been found by other fact checkers to be accurate, and it is a fantastic source for getting rid of these social media hoaxes that you see all the time. And if I post a Snopes article and someone tries to tell me, oh, well, you can't trust Snopes, they're a bunch of libtards. Okay, I'll tell you right now, this is how you know that somebody doesn't know how anything fucking works if they say that, okay, first of all. And second of all, Snopes posts in all of their articles, okay, they post their sources. They cite their sources. Fake articles don't do that. And if you don't trust Snopes, you could always check the sources where they get the information. They usually have very good sources. It's not nonsense sources. And another thing that I like to say, if somebody tries to tell me Snopes is not trustworthy, is I'll ask them, all right, can you share with me an article or give me an example of when Snopes got something wrong? And they didn't retract it, because if Snopes can be shown that they got something wrong, they will it and explain what was wrong about it, all right, which I believe is very rare for them. But I usually just ask someone to give me an example of something that Snopes got factually incorrect, and they can never do it, like ever, have never had it happen. It's because the claims they're making that Snopes isn't trustworthy is not based on facts. Okay? Because Snopes typically uses facts to determine whether something is true or false. And as we all know, okay, lots of people out there, they think that Snopes, since it uses facts, and facts are biased towards liberalism, they think you can't trust Snopes. And it's a bunch of silly nonsense. So, back to gullibility. Okay, we know what the definition is, and we recognize, I think, the kinds of people who are gullible out there that we encounter in real life and online. What do we do about it? I have started by, this kind of ties into my first episode, if I see misinformation out there, okay, gullible people tend to believe misinformation as though it is real and true. And when you see this online or in person, you need to call them out on it. This crap that gullible people fall for must be rooted out. We have to show gullible people that they're being gullible. I think this is a worthy endeavor. It may be an exercise in futility most of the time, especially for the person that you're actually engaging with. But who knows how many people, especially online, are watching you engage with that person. I mean, even if only one other person read it and thought, they might have a point, and they decide to look into what you're talking about. I mean, I've had my mind change like this on things. My mind was changed. I went from being anti-GMO to being pro-GMO because of things I was reading online. It started with a comment thread, and it led me to do research on my own. And, well, not research. It led me to do some reading on my own. And I was able to determine that, the science behind GMOs is actually sound and conclusive. And I'll tell you, if you start doing this, if you start going out, finding people who are gullible, and I promise, you've probably got one at arm's length away at all times. If you show them that they're believing something without good reason, and if you make it a point to do this, maybe not every single time you encountered it, you'd be exhausted, but fairly often when you encounter it, people are going to think you're a dick. Alright? They're going to think you're a fucking asshole. But it just can't be helped. I mean, what's the other option? To just let people believe in nonsense? Some would say yes. Some would say, why can't you just leave people alone? Let them believe what they want. Their beliefs aren't harming anyone. But I'll tell you, I disagree with that. Okay? Yeah, this one person believing in this one thing might not directly harm me in my life. That's true. But it is harmful to our society as a whole when large numbers, of people in our society, like half or more of them, believe in some kind of magical thinking. They believe in ghosts. They believe in these conspiracy theories. It affects the way they live. It affects the way they interact with other people. It affects the way they think about other people. Whole groups of people in our society, it affects them. It affects the way they vote. It affects so much. So it is important to try to make people understand when they are just believing in something with no justification, when they are spouting nonsense that is factually incorrect. But I, for one, think it's a worthy endeavor for us skeptics to try to undertake. I know if I was being gullible about something, I would want someone to point it out to me, and I'd like to think I'd be humble about it. I wouldn't be a defensive idiot. Because the thing about gullible people is they're very easily persuaded. And since they are so easily persuaded, one has to worry what they might be persuaded to do, what atrocities they could be persuaded to do. And that is why gullibility is not just a harmless part of some people's personality. That is the problem with gullibility. Thank you for listening to Basically Atheist. I'm going to try to get back on track, posting a new episode every other Friday. If you have not yet, follow Basically Atheist on social media. You can find our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, and our YouTube channel. And the podcast is also available on Podbean and iTunes. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.